Hey everyone, welcome to today's online training and workshop. This is Ryan Williams. So thrilled that you're here and that you can hear me okay. I've finished writing my book, which I'm excited to say is getting proofed today. So the final proof's coming in. As you can tell, I've got some writing stubble, and if I seem tired, hopefully it's because I have finished my book and I don't have to do any more work than that. So I'm a bit having a hangover, if you will. So thank you so much for joining us today on the webinar. We're going to be talking about building your platform ahead of your product launch. And I'm a firm believer in always building community for your ideas. And you need to build community and a platform well in advance of any of your products that you're going to launch. I believe this since I've worked at Machinima, a startup in Los Angeles, that when I left, we valued the company at $200 million by investors because we built such a loyal community on YouTube with gamers. We had a gaming content network for people playing Minecraft and Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, and they would upload videos of them playing video games. And you think this is not a big activity, but it's a global phenomenon watching gameplay. And what I found was that these people had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And from that base, we could market products and web series and movies and video games and tech products and mobile apps, all because these influencers had big YouTube followings. So this online workshop will be about you all. So in the comments, if you have any ideas or thoughts or questions, please let me know and make this as interactive as possible. So welcome to the Influencer Economy online training on how to build your platform ahead of your product launch. All right, let's do it. How does this look? Does this look good? All right. So my background is that I worked at a startup called Digisend that was, well, I'm a former stand-up comedian for starters. And that was when I lived in Washington, D.C. And then I moved to Los Angeles to continue working in entertainment, but specifically in the industry of entertainment. And then I pivoted from working on shows like The Wire and Ugly Betty as an assistant into technology startups around media. So one company, Digisend, was acquired by Disney to run our social media analytics. Another one was called Machinima, which is a tech startup that was a YouTube network that I just mentioned. Another one was called Stake.com, and that is a opinion network based in London that I helped launch as our only US marketing team member, and it was an API mobile app, very similar to Twitter, but semantic in data and knowledge. So you could agree or disagree with people based on the topics that you were passionate about. So then now I have the Influencer Economy, and I have my book that's coming out, and I've spent the last 2.5 years doing research, talking to world famous YouTubers, podcasters, best-selling authors, cutting edge thinkers and entertainers, trying to figure out what makes influencers tick and what makes them. I'm going to just double check that this is working properly. Do a quick test. But yeah, I want to make sure that the Influencer Economy. Wait, what? Hold on one second. It looks like this is not working, so pardon the interruption. My screen is not working properly. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm back with you. Let's do a screen share. Yeah, I want to do the PowerPoint. Oh, here we go. Apologies about that. So I ended up working for a bunch of tech startups. Let me just double check. Is it lagging? What's going on here? Here we go. So I've talked to YouTubers, they're world renowned in their fame and their business. I've interviewed some best-selling New York Times authors that have self-published phenomenal books. And I've talked to some of the most cutting-edge investors and entrepreneurs in the world, like Troy Carter, who you see here, invested Uber and Lyft and Dropbox, used to manage Lady Gaga in her career. Freddie Wong, who you see right here, is a YouTuber with 7 million subscribers, and he's ended up crowdfunding over $2 million in films. I'll get to him later. And Willie Geist, who's on the Today Show and reached a top 10 New York Times bestseller without even publishing on Amazon. And he's a bit more famous than a lot of the influencers I talked to. But ultimately, the book's coming out June 14th. If you live in Los Angeles, I'm doing a launch party at General Assembly in Santa Monica. If you live in San Francisco, I will be up there on the 27th of June. And if you live in Washington, D.C., I'll be there on June 30th. And I'm partnering with General Assembly on my tour. Also working on a New York trip and hopefully a trip to Canada this fall, as well as Lisbon, Portugal, and other spots around the world. So why is this relevant right now? Well, there's now a series of modern principles in what I call the influencer economy. And these principles are in emoji right here. And they're just, this is a fun way to present it. But ultimately, there's three main steps, right? So the steps are that I've cultivated after all these years of talking to influencers. They're launch, share, and thrive. Those are the three basic steps. You need to launch your idea. You need to get out of your way, forget perfection. And unless you're Kanye West, no one cares if you make mistakes. He embarrasses himself all the time, and he's the only person in the world that we actually pay attention to. The next step is share. Share your idea with influencers, collaborate with your community, treat your community as an influencer, and try to capture that lightning in a bottle where your idea takes off because you're sharing it. So many people are afraid to share. They're afraid to fail. You need to get through all those insecurities and thoughts to launch your idea. And then finally, thriving. Thriving is the stage where you're accessible to your audience and your community, and your business is taking off. You're starting to make some money in a way, and you're cultivating and harnessing the energy of launching and sharing and thriving to meet your customers and your community in real life and actually go in full throttle to build a business around your idea. That's a bit more mature. And so today we're focusing on the launch and the share steps. As I mentioned, step one is launch, because unless you're Kanye West, no one cares if you make mistakes. Literally, no one's watching you if you make mistakes. So creating a big vision is the very first philosophy in the launch step. So in order to craft your big vision, I love big visions. Many of you know I have my podcast for almost 2.5 years now, and my book took equally that much time to launch. So I was building my platform and building an audience and a community of people that I now love and have grown to greatly appreciate. And without this community, my book would never have launched, and my book would never have been written. And for me, I think the big vision of writing a book helped me to build the community. And more importantly, it helped me get really great podcast guests on my show, which then were featured in the book. So the influencer economy is 3 steps and 10 principles about people that I interviewed. So you need to find out what drives you to build your big vision. And you don't necessarily need to have a goal. A lot of people think they need to start something, but I talked to Brad Feld, who's an investor with a group, and it's called Techstars. It's a huge accelerator incubator based out of Boulder, Colorado. And he expressed to me that if the barrier to entry is low for your idea, you don't necessarily need a goal. You just need to start making stuff, start creating stuff. And oftentimes, making a big vision is very scary and it's daunting. But if you actually start out without a goal and start making stuff, picking a platform, which we'll get into, then the vision can come. But you don't get the vision unless you just start and you just launch something and you put it out to the world and you share with others. So ultimately, if you have trouble finding a vision, think about your values. Write down 3 values that matter to you right now. and realize your values are going to change over time, potentially, because your business may change, or your idea may pivot, and ultimately your vision may even change. But don't let that get in the way of getting it out there, because perfection doesn't matter. You have to forget perfection. And ultimately, you need to find this thing you geek out about that becomes a big vision. So I recommend 3 things in order to find this big vision. One is you think big with a long-term project, and you go very, very big with an idea. Mine was my book. When I work with other entrepreneurs and tech founders, it's often a software they're building. At Machinima, it was building a global YouTube network. For you, it could be a album. It could be a movie. It could be a tech product. It could be a book. But think big with a longer-term project. And then you pick a smaller project to pursue to get you to that longer term project. For me, the book was that longer term project, but the small project was the podcast. And that kept me going every week. I had to book guests, I had to edit, I had to upload, I had to market it, I had to build community. And that kept me going. And oftentimes we lose purpose with our projects because our big projects and big ideas are so grandiose that we don't have smaller steps to get us from point A to point B. Or the smaller project is meaningless because we don't have a bigger vision. So you have to marry the big vision with the smaller project to keep you going, to catalyze your idea. And finally, there's a great book by Eric Ries called The Lean Startup, which I highly recommend. And in this book, he talks about building a minimum viable product. So you need to figure out what is the most basic version of what you're building and make it. And that's what you're going to launch. So you make steps and building blocks to launch the product at the most minimum feature set possible for a tech product. With me, my MVP was the podcast. It was a way to workshop ideas, talk to smart people, and get guests on to profile in the book. Many birds with one stone, if you will. So ultimately, think big with a long-term project. Pick a smaller project to pursue to get you to the long-term big vision, and then build that MVP, which is a smaller, incremental, basic idea of what you're creating to start getting feedback and collaborate. And ultimately, once you have your big idea, to think about what that smaller project is it's often the platform, and that's where it comes into play. So let's say you want to write, like Chris Hardwick, for example. He's now on TV. He hosts the show Talking Dead, which is the after show for Walking Dead, and he has a whole company called Nerdist. It's a massive media company based in Burbank. What he did was he embraced his personality and found out podcasting was the medium to build a platform off of. And for you, that may not be the case. But for him, he had friends that were well-known and famous in the digital world. Will Wheaton was an old friend. And he started just turning on microphones and chatting with these folks. But what he did was create very brilliant small steps to launch his platform and just get it out to the world. He found the name Nerdist. He made it up. If you build it, they will come type of mentality. If you make a name for your idea, it actually becomes real. He found a logo, which you see right here, and he bought the website. I have a secret that I use for any idea I have is I go have a glass of wine, and I'm not joking, and I buy a domain for any idea I have. And I just say, I'm going to buy them. And I have 20 domains that are about to expire that I bought last year. And my new company is called Rhino Lab. And I brought Rhino Creative, Rhino Studio, Rhino Production. I brought RYNO for almost any creative derivative out there, and they're all about to expire. I don't need any of them as much anymore because I have rhinolab.com. But I was kind of paranoid that someone would take away the domain because that's your lifeblood. And you need a .com. You need something tangible that people know. They need yourname.com instead of a .net or a hyphen. So for me, rhinolab.com is my new site. When I got influencereconomy.com, I was so thrilled that it was still there. So ultimately, the name, logo, and domain are very important for the platform. I also recommend picking a content platform. And by content platform, I mean places you can get subscribers. People are obsessed with followers and fans, and that's not always the case. So for me, it's like, can you get a Snapchat, YouTube, Vine, a podcast, a blog? Those are platforms with subscribers. Email newsletters, email is never going away. Email is here to stay. I check email embarrassingly in bed when I wake up. And don't tell my wife this, but I usually check it right before I go to sleep because she falls asleep earlier. And ultimately, email newsletters are so great for ROI. I recommend building an email list now. If your idea is launching in a year, build some sort of platform around it, and the email newsletter needs to be imperative to that platform. I send out a weekly email. It's a full-time job. You really have to craft it and write it in a eloquent way that makes people feel like they're connecting with you. But I find it's the most personal way to connect with people because social media is so fleeting. And people talk on Twitter if they're online, or Facebook is your friends. But email, you can actually get to know people that are outside of your network. And that's what's really important with the platform. Like oftentimes you'll see that your alpha community and your friend group will change, and you'll get a micro community, which I talk about in the book. Micro community are the people you're building your idea for. And often the email newsletter is the way to get the micro community. And for me, it's entrepreneurs, it's for startup founders, and it's people that want a new job and want to take the bull by the horns and create their idea. And I found that out through my email newsletter, and that was my micro community. Public speaking is also a platform. You could create I have a private Facebook group, which I consider a platform that I invite people. It's invite only for the influencer economy, and other people use Slack groups for this. My alpha group in Facebook is the first place I publish info about the book, the tour. I'll be asking people to leave me Amazon reviews when it comes out to help me trend when the book launches. And ultimately, the Facebook group, I recommend an email list ASAP for you. And secondly, a Facebook group private for your alpha community. They could be friends I put friends in my group at first just to make sure, so I had some numbers. And now when you sign up for my email newsletter, you get an invite to the Facebook group. So those are two secrets I really recommend: the email newsletter and the Facebook group. And if you're tech savvy, Slack. And then finally, the image communities: Pinterest, Instagram, and crowdfunding sites like Indiegogo and GoFundMe. And those are all platforms to build communities, and then take the communities elsewhere to build your customer base, your business, and ultimately launch your idea. You may wonder, why is there a photo of my father-in-law? I too am wondering this, but I had a great conversation with him a couple months ago, and I included him in the book because that's my father-in-law, his father, and a business partner, and their dog Josie, a German Shepherd. And Joe Moore is a boiler repair contractor in North Carolina. And the Joe Moore rule is about building a platform, not digitally. And he says you got to treat your platform like a job. And platform for him isn't like building a podcast or a blog or public speaking. It is giving people something special they don't get anywhere else. And so for him, he developed a knowledge and a skill around boiler repair that no one else has in the Southeast. And he shares that advice with people. So he gets a lot of calls from potential customers that say, hey, I need help. Can you give me some advice? He gives them a free half hour, and he makes their life easier and better. And then ultimately, he solves a pain point for them. And so in the end, if you can get the Joe Moore rule into your philosophy, that you make someone's life easier, you have a skill, you're sharing it with others, and it's something special they can't get anywhere else, like solving a pain point, for example, then that is a knowledge of, you need to mentor people. You need to teach people. You need to bring them in to make their life better and treat that platform professionally, even if it's not paying the bills at this point in your career. Another key to platform creation is consistency. A lot of people fall off on this. They have big visions. They say, I'm going to write a blog every week. And then they write 2 and it goes away. Or they launch a podcast and they only put up 3 episodes. Or they say, I'm going to go public speak. And they speak at a local library and then it trails off. Or oftentimes people, they have an idea, I want to build an email newsletter, and they only get 30 signups and they quit. And that's okay, because ultimately you need to be staying at this for the long haul. And there's a rule I learned when I was in entertainment about attrition, where everyone goes home and quits that works in entertainment when they feel like they failed. So when someone quits, that's an opportunity for you to move up the ladder. And that's the same way with building a platform. A podcaster quits, I'm moving up the food chain if they're really successful. If I have an email newsletter and there's another business person that has an email newsletter and they stop and they lag and I pick up some new subscribers, then I've won the attrition battle. So ultimately, you look at these people that are massive YouTubers like Flula. He's right here. He's in the book. He's got Flu's Days. Every Tuesday, he puts a video up. He brands the show in a fun way. Hannah Hart has Tunes Day. Every Tuesday, she does funny music collaborations. Mark Maron has shows every Monday and Thursday for his WTF podcast. Rooster Teeth built a whole community, a whole website, roosterteeth.com, and they're a video web game company. because they were making web series that only lasted for 12 weeks and they needed somewhere for people to hang out in between web series. So be consistent. And then we're going to move into, after the consistency phase, is step 2. This is share. The share. We've talked about launching, and now we're talking about sharing and how you need to bring in both your community and influencers to share your ideas to the world. In that, you need to find out how to collaborate. Collaboration is key in the influencer economy, and that's the principle of the share step that is critical to your success, because people often forget that you don't need influencers to launch. You need a community. So you can collaborate with your community. You open up the process. You get feedback on your product. You do webinars. You give away your content. You're giving away your ideas. You're making people's lives better. You're mentoring. You're helping them along the way. And then you give them ownership of the brand. The more people help you along your way up, the more they feel like they're a part of your story. It's like when you are your friend finds that band, when you're in high school, you're like, oh my God, I love this band, the Arctic Monkeys or Wilco. And they're the cool person that's the trendsetter that finds the band. And then they become the biggest fan of the band and the biggest evangelist because they're the ones that discovered them. So you want to think people want to discover your work, and you want them to feel ownership over your idea and to collaborate with your community. It's more important than influencers, because influencers will come and go. They're busy, but your community is your lifeblood, and they'll be with you for the long haul. Secondarily, collaborating with influencers isn't just saying, hey, can I tweet with you? Or can you tweet this out? Or can you post this on Instagram? Collaborating with influencers is actually making content with them. You're not asking people, hey, can I go to coffee and pick your brain? You're saying, hey, can I collaborate with you? I'd love to share my idea. Can you give me some feedback? Or can I write a blog post with you? Or can you come on my podcast? Ultimately, people don't want to just give advice willy-nilly. Like, we're so busy now, they want to collaborate with you. And if they can help make your product better, hey, here's my demo. Look, I'm building this tech product and we're doing something in fantasy sports. Let me get your feedback. Can you make it better? Can you help me? You ask them to support you, and it's collaborative content or collaborative product making. It isn't, hey, can you tweet this? Hey, can you Instagram this? It's not just sharing to their social media network, which is often what I find the biggest frustration with people I work with that want celebrities, and they ask me for celebrity endorsement help. And I tell them it's a terrible idea. It's not worth it. You're going to give a lot of equity away. You're going to have to pay people to do it. And I don't want to have to cost you money when you could work with an influencer, collaborate, and make a product with them. And that's something, if anyone has questions about this, email me afterwards, ryan@influencereconomy.com. I'm happy to help. So back to the community collaboration, there's something I call the Benihana rule. You're asking yourself, why does this guy have a Benihana chef on his PowerPoint about launching ideas? It's because Benihana is a restaurant I used to go to as a kid. I ended up getting a lot of birthday parties there with my family. Why? Because it's a process that you sit next to strangers and the chef lets you cook with them and you see what he's making, and he does tricks and he sometimes makes mistakes. But the beauty of the Benihana rule is it lets you into the cooking process. So cook with your community, open up your ideas, connect through them, give people ownership like I've been talking about, give them opportunity to give you feedback, to make your product better, invite people to your alpha, to your beta. I gave my book away for free if you're on my email list. Why? Because I want your feedback. You're a different type of a writer or thinker than I am. I hired a professional editor, and I want people to tell me what's good and even what's bad about my ideas so I don't have problems. The book to be as amazing and as meaningful and as hopefully game-changing as possible. And the more I get help from others, the better it is. And that's the Benihana rule at work. Open up your process. Give people a chance to see it in advance and cook with your community. And then the influencer collaborations. There's a term that YouTubers use called collab. It's called the collab. And a collab is when a big YouTuber or small YouTuber or medium-sized YouTuber, they appear in each other's videos. So let's say I have a YouTube channel called The Influencer Economy, and you have a YouTube channel called Influencer Marketing. And that's just this brand that we have this connection in common. Let's say I have 100 million subscribers. I have a massive channel. I have the biggest in the world. I'm PewDiePie for what I do. Let's say you have 2 subscribers. You come on my channel, I come on your channel. We create shareable content. We work together. We collaborate. We make each other look good. And we share something with one another, right? Because you have a platform. But ultimately, not everyone has a platform. So you need to invite these YouTube creators or whoever on to your platform. And there's something I call the reverse Oprah Winfrey effect. And Oprah used to have a show where she would invite people on for the book club, or for, Twitter came on as an early tech product. And Oprah would make these people overnight successes. Twitter popped when it came on. The book club made bestsellers overnight. And there's now the reverse Oprah Winfrey effect. That means you could have a small platform with 3 people on the platform supporting you, and you get an influencer in your category to come on and participate and collaborate with you, and then they share it out. That makes you look so good because you look like you have social proof because other influencers are endorsing you. When I went and got my book blurbs, I just got one from Adam Grant. He's a very successful, prolific writer. He wrote a book called Give and Take, and I highly recommend it. It's about giving and how givers succeed more than takers. And ultimately, Adam came on and he just was the first person to, really endorse me. And he didn't need that social proof. But a lot of influencers want your validity, that you're not just asking for a favor. Don't ask for favors from influencers. Collaborate with them, give them value, over deliver, make it easy for them, make them look good, and create shareable content or a product that they could then give to their community. And then in general, a couple branding rules I like to talk about are make things simple. Of the podcast guests and people from my book, the ideas of WTF, red versus blue, his and hers, sword and laser. It is no unsimilarity here that their names are short and sweet. The Influencer Economy is a big name for a book, a big name for a podcast. I can have a big name for a book, but I'm rebranding my show. I'm going to call my podcast now Rhino Lab, which is the name of my company. And it's a way for creators and entrepreneurs to use the forum as a laboratory to talk about how they've created their game-changing ideas. Why did I shorten it? Because I learned from the Influencer Economy. WTF, sword and laser, his and hers, red versus blue. Make your platform easy and memorable. I would go to conferences and people would say, okay, your podcast is called Stories from the Influencer Economy. That's a cool name. How do I find it? They search for stories. There's 50 podcasts comes up. Ryan Williams, there's a lot of podcasts that come up. I've been on podcasts and it's a common name. Rhino, R-Y-N-O, is a nickname I had growing up. It's easy. It's SEO friendly. Google your idea, Google your name, Google your platform, and find out if there's competition for it. And if not, own the terms. When you search for Influencer Economy in Google, I'm on the first page and I dominate it. And now with Rhino Lab, it's the same thing. So think about short, sweet platforms and names and branding and how you can dominate Google SEO. And getting into community building, one phase I love to talk about is Freddie Wong. And he's an early adopter, tech enthusiast. He was on YouTube early and crowdfunded early. And he said something profound to me that was so simple. Back when he had my podcast, I knew if I build community first, then good things would happen. So Freddie built a platform ahead of Video Game High School, which is a massive crowdfunding campaign. He had $900,000, but he's raised over $2 million over 3 campaigns, right? So what he did was he built this community on YouTube of 7 million subscribers, then transferred the community over to crowdfunding his movie. And he has Video Game High School. It's very much geared toward young gamers. And it's like Harry Potter for video games, where kids go to an academy in the future to play games. So he's got this base and he transfers the community over to crowdfunding and he blows it through the roof. He dominates it. So ultimately, why? Because he's accessible. He's on YouTube. He's crowdfunding and he's doing well. But he customized the technology for himself. Another undervalued thing is the technology is here to empower you. Everyone I've interviewed is curious. Be curious about tech. Don't look at tech as a problem. Look at it as a solution. Train yourself. Go to webinars, YouTube videos, watch content, pay for coaching if you need to. But ultimately, he used these perks on Kickstarter, which were so personal to his community. And I joke that Spike Lee would never go to Disney with you. Quentin Tarantino would never go to Disney with you. But ultimately, Disney was a perk. And so for $5,000, you could go to Disney with the cast and crew of Video Game High School. That's amazing. That is incredible. And you also could get a co-producer credit. So think about that. He's doing a web series, Video Game High School, and you're a producer. Your likeness is in the show. You're going to a screening, and you go to Disney with the cast and crew, including Freddie, your hero. So ultimately, he's giving so much ownership to the community and actually getting money back. Giving ownership in a spiritual sense makes you money in the long run. Then Freddie Wong also did the donut surprise for $2,500. He would come to your doorstep and give you donuts or French dough or whatever locally people had there. That's brilliant because in the end, if I want to meet Freddie and he's my hero, how can I become a connection with him? I buy the perk. I get to meet him. He's my hero. I make content. I show it on Facebook and Instagram to my friends. So ultimately giving ownership through perks, embracing the tech, using it as a solution, not a problem, gave Freddie an opportunity to dominate crowdfunding. And I always recommend email lists. This is an email list for a crowdfunding campaign. And I recommend anyone on this webinar is support a crowdfunding project. Go to Kickstarter, Indiegogo. GoFundMe is a little more political, but do something where you can back a video game, a project, a board game, spend like $5, $10. Education you get is so personal on crowdfunding. And ultimately, think of your brands giving ownership to them as a crowdfunding project. When I talked to the founding CTO of Kickstarter, he told me that Kickstarter is not a store. You're not browsing Amazon. It's a patronage. You're supporting someone's project while they're obligated to keep you in the process and keep you in the know for what's happening. It's an alternative to the traditional publishing structure where fans can fund projects and become part of the story and process. So think about that. You want your community to be a part of the story, to be part of the process, and you're obligated to keep them in the know. So if you fail with your email newsletter and you don't do it for a month, your email list goes stale. You're obligated to keep your sign-up customers in the process. Give them the Benihana effect. Let them cook with you. Let them see behind the scenes, because ultimately crowdfunding is not necessarily a platform. It's a way of thinking. It's a way to give community ownership and control and your brand to your top fans, your top customers, your top community members. And those are your lifetime subscribers that will hopefully back you forever. And they're your biggest evangelists and supporters that will share your projects to their audiences and their communities. And if they're influencers, even better for you. So that is one element of the webinar here. And I wanted to talk to you quickly about my coaching group that I'm launching again. So I have a coaching group I'm doing right now. We launched the beta, and it's just a couple people in it. We have 5 so far. And it's a chance for you all to work with me if you want me to be a co-founder for marketing, business development, and operational execution. I don't take shares or equity. It's a payment system, but I act as a co-founder. I help you through your tough moments, your dark moments, your highs and your lows. I do regular coaching calls. I do group coaching calls. We have community support, and I introduce you to my network. I want to build people's networks that I believe in. So you can apply to become part of my next coaching group. I'm launching it in June. And additionally, I want you to go big with your idea. So I want to make it the right fit. And if you have any questions, Ryan@influencereconomy.com. But this coaching group is something that I've launched. I love it. It's my favorite part of my job. And I'll be doing this for forever. And I give out newsletters and worksheets and guidebooks. But ultimately, it's how can I bring you a network, a coaching strategy session, and a community around launching your idea to take it global. And so we're working with the first group, and it's been a lot of fun. And it's 5. I'm accepting 5 new members for June 27th. It's $375, and then it's $187 if you'd like half of the service. So let me know what you think, Ryan@influencereconomy.com. And then at the end, I want to just show you really quick that it's a grind. Everything we're doing is a grind. It's one email, it's one subscriber, it's one customer at a time. And ultimately that makes it very difficult, and you got to think for the long haul. So let's think about how to build your business for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, and not just trying to make a bunch of quick dollars. And that's what I think happens a lot, is that people want to make a quick buck. Especially I live in LA. I mean, it's like a quick buck capital of the world. And they burn through relationships. They burn through partnerships and customers because they don't take the long view. So ultimately, let's look at this as a slow grind. It's a methodical process. Launching your idea is going to take a lot of time, but ultimately, hopefully, the launch, share, thrive message that you learned today is something that you can build off of and that we can all learn from the leaders of the influencer economy. So that is the end of the slideshow. If anyone would like my list of books that I recommend to help you with your influencer big vision, I have I have 10 books that I give out the list of people that I recommend. Often these books are ones that I have created footnotes for in my book. But I love Making Ideas Happen by Scott Belsky, Give and Take by Adam Grant, Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products by Nir Eyal, and many, many others. James Altucher's Choose Yourself. So I'm happy to give the list out to anyone that emails me, ryan@influencereconomy.com. And I thank you so much for joining me. If any of you have questions, I'll be available for the next 10 minutes. So feel free to reach out via email. I'll even leave the webinar on at the moment to talk to people. So email me your questions and we can go in, and I'll leave this Q&A for the next 10 minutes. So thank you so much for joining. And remember, it's a slow grind. All right, if you're going to want to chat a question, I just started the chat. I'm back. So if you have any questions, shoot. I'll be around for a couple more minutes. I'm happy to give any advice. And as I mentioned, my book tour is happening. So if you live in San Francisco, Los Angeles, or DC, I'm going on the road. I'm also opening it up. I'm doing a college tour this fall, speaking at business schools everywhere from Nashville to Cornell up in Ithaca. So I'd love to come and give a workshop if you live in any of these cities like Austin or Nashville, and come to your business, or even come to have an independent workshop. So if you want to bring the influencer economy as a podcast as well, or as a workshop, I'm having a whole bunch of other offers and opportunities. And I got a call. I'm good. Can I call you back in a couple minutes? Okay, thanks. All right, perfect. That was not someone from the community. That was my book person that is helping me with doing the final proof of the book. So hopefully that will be done. I'm publishing it on Kindle for the pre-order, and then I'll be going live with physical copies. So anyway, that is it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.